Yeah, boys, July 15th, and it's episode 172, and this is the Fantasy Football Auctioneer Podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer Podcast is the official podcast of the fantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to fantasy football auctions. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're out there. Our Twitter handle is @FantasyAuction. You can hit me up. I'm at Uncle Buckets. But I don't even know, Blistr. I went for a whole brand new setup this morning or this afternoon, but then I didn't even write it down, so I messed things up. So, but of course, our experts, our analysts, our only analyst is here. He's back from the West Coast, and he's back on the pod. Blistr, baby, you're back.
So good to be back, man. It's good to be back. I've been listening to a lot of pods and doing a lot of football work, and I got to start producing some more material for the website. Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm excited. I want to draft right now. Like, I can be more ready to draft than I am right now. And I just feel like, I know we answered a question on Twitter the other day about when's a good time to draft. And I think you guys might answer it on the pod too. I actually listened to you guys. You guys were pretty good, actually.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I thought that right now would be a great time for me because I feel confident in my research and stuff. And I know a lot of people haven't done that much yet. So
yeah. Well, when you get locked in the car for that long, right? So
absolutely. You can hammer out a few pods when you're driving 12 hours a day sometimes. So it works out pretty good.
I know. Yeah. I hear you. I've done it lots. I know, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Slim's off tonight, so it's going to be just Blistr and I know some of you might have been tuning in to listen to Matt Harmon. He was a little bit busy in his first week at Yahoo, so he's going to be on next week with us on the 21st. So it will be a action-packed show, a lot of wide receiver talk. Obviously, we'll find out what's going on over at Yahoo with him, and with four of us on there, it'll be busy.
Awesome.
So, yeah, and then we'll just keep rolling from there. So, Blistr, let's just get right into it. So, if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. So, Blistr, tonight we've got ourselves a little show. We got some listener questions. We have the AFC North to break down, and then wherever everything else takes us sideways. It was like Slim and I last week. We kind of thought, well, we'll start with the listener questions and see what happens, and we ended up doing a whole show just on listener questions. So
yeah, it was good. Yeah, it sounds good. Got lots of good information we can go through here tonight. That'll be good.
Exactly. So, hey, before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for sending in their mock auction drafts to us to help us accumulate more and more data to make our average auction values, really the most accurate and realistic ones that are out there. Blistr, I mean, I actually thought that this week what I was going to do, I was looking through a magazine sitting on the beach last night, and I had to go up into the cabin and grab Sharpie and start circling and folding over ears and whatever, because I couldn't believe that the atrocity that was this magazine. And I thought, I've got our whole show. I'll just throw out a comment they make, and then you just poo-poo it, and then I'll throw out another one, and then you just poo-poo it. Like, They actually said, like, Wayne Gallman is going to be a steal this year.
Wayne Gallman?
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard his name all year.
Yeah.
Wow. Wayne Gallman.
Wayne Gallman. Yeah, he's a sleeper this year.
Yeah. I guess they must not know Saquon.
But like those were some of the things. And just so you know, the highest auction value in their magazine, which I actually like that they had, like for each profile for each player, they actually put the auction value like in that little square or whatever. So I thought that was good, except for I think the highest value was $31, and that was for Antonio Brown.
31 for Antonio Brown.
31,
wow.
Yeah. And so maybe it was $100, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe. So then I'd say, okay, 62. Okay. Then, but my favorite thing, they did a mock snake. It's a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, a flex, the standard, DST, and a kicker. This guy he's a writer for the magazine, got the 101. He drafted 3 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league.
Oh boy!
And in the 4th, I may add, he drafted Cam. So why he was drafting 2 more quarterbacks after that is beyond me, because he's not streaming Cam.
What? This is a magazine?
This is a magazine, yeah, that is like on, like it was right. I paid for it, for crying out loud.
God, I hope they're in our league, these people.
They're not. I didn't recognize any of the contributors' names, so that's why I bought it, because it was a different magazine than I had bought before. I usually like to have one in the summer for at the lake. I don't have any sort of Wi-Fi or internet or anything up there, and I just slowly leaf through it, whether I'm in the outhouse or on the beach. Yeah. But I thought that was going to be the whole. Wow. I thought I had a whole podcast right here.
No
My family was just dying laughing. Look at him over there. It's just like coming off the paper and out of my ears. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? How do you say this? And I wasn't even mad because there was an auction in it. I was just mad because it was junky. Anyways, okay, sorry. I'll go back. I just wanted to thank everybody for sending out the mock auction draft information. It helps us to stay accurate. It helps us stay current. So the more information you send to us, the more accurate everything can be for everybody. And so it's kind of this crowd sourcing idea. So the idea is this. So you send us the results of your mock auction or your real auction. You send it to auctionmockdraft@gmail.com. And every time you send us a result, we'll put your name in the hat for a free membership. So you put your name, you send in the email, we put your name in. It's that simple. You send it in 10 times, you get 10 entries. Okay. So that's the deal. It's auctionmockdraft@gmail.com. Pretty simple. Just forward the results of the draft that you had, forward it over to there. In the subject, it'd be great if you put, if there's any parameters around the league, 12 team, 10 team, 14 team, PPR, whatever the case may be. That would also be helpful for us. So Blistr, we have drawn a name and we have a winner for this week's free membership. So this week's winner is Paul Aguayu. Hopefully I probably hammered that name because I'm usually really good at reading names. Anyways, I do have an email address here for Paul. So Paul, what I'll do is I'll fire you an email at the end of the pod with a promo code to get the free membership to the All Auction website, the auctioneer level at our website, which has been flying off the handle. Blistr, I don't know that I've seen this much activity in mid-July. It's been awesome to see. So I know more and more people are getting ready for their auctions nice and early, which I like too.
That's good. Yeah, I think even when I was listening to some pods, I love to listen and gather as much information as I possibly can. And, everyone says, well, if you're listening to podcasts right now, that's the first step. You're probably a leg up on your league mates in competition. And I think it's true. I mean, absolutely. People are putting in a lot of good time and they're getting information from beat writers, and there's some people that are at the source and have good connections. And you know what? You just got to take all that stuff in and weigh it all. And then you can make better educated guesses, I guess, to who you
that's right. And so speaking of what was I going to say? Speaking of getting ready for drafts, we're currently in a draft, just like probably every other analyst out there. But let's see, there's 2 of us. So 898 other people are in this draft, huge draft, the Scott Fish Bowl. Blistr, how's your draft going so far? I'm on round 16.
Yeah, we wrapped up yesterday or the day before. We're done, but I'll run through my team. Yeah, I thought it'd be good to talk about our teams. I mean, every podcast I listen to, and then if I did get fortunate enough to have the Fantasy Sports Channel on Sirius on the radio when we were going across country, every analyst and everybody on that show was talking about the Scott Fish Bowl, and I think anybody that's listened to us, if they don't know, it's a big, huge draft. It's a snake draft, but it's one that benefit charities. And Scott Fish, he's based out of Minneapolis, and he puts together a lot of money, and he buys toys for kids at Christmas time that are unfortunate, probably kids that might not be getting anything, and he does a great thing with this. And so there's 900 people in the draft this year. I mean, he's
and thousands that didn't get in, apparently.
Yeah, one crazy guy that, when we started, I think it might have been 240, then it went to 360, then 480, and then I thought this year was going to be even just 720, but it's gone to 900. So he's got 75 divisions with 12 teams in each division. Anyway, so it's an awesome thing to be a part of. Every analyst that you could think of, Matthew Barry, even Beckett's buddy Dave Richards, everybody from Yahoo, CBS, and Matt Harmon, JJ Zachariason, and you name it. Like there's guys from every site that Zachariason.
Yeah.
Well, I had his buddy.
I'm sure he listens.
His buddy CD Carter was in our league this year. So
right.
I gave him a couple digs. He never really replied, but it was fun. Anyways, we got it done. I'll quickly recap my team. It's a you start at a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then 4 flexes, one of which can be a quarterback. So pretty much everybody takes every quarterback, even the backups in this one.
Yeah.
I took Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Ryan.
It's also a tight end premium.
It is tight end
right?
premium.
Like
it's got point PPR, quarter point per carry, I think. Anyways, and then so actually my first pick was Dalvin Cook in the first round. I picked 108, and then I come back with Kareem Hunt, and then I went Cam Newton and Drew Brees. Anyways. So Ryan Tannehill's my third quarterback. I got Matt Breida, whatever, from San Fran. Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Justin Jackson, LA, Marlon Mack, Darren Sproles, Spencer Ware, and Jordan Wilkins round out my running backs. Corey Coleman, Julian Edelman, Pierre Garçon, Kenny Galladay, Devontae Parker, Demaryius Thomas, James Washington, and Chad Williams are my wide receivers. And you'll notice like the biggest name I got there is Demaryius Thomas. And then hopefully I think Pierre is going to have a good year. When Julian comes back, he'll be solid. And Devontae Parker, he's one of the guys too I like this year. I really think he's going to break out. And then tight end, Tyler Higbee, Greg Olsen, and Ricky Seals-Jones. So I'm a little light there. Especially if Olsen plays like his age. But the biggest concern I have, or wonder I have, the Q label beside 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys on my team and 1 S label. So I hope that means super good and
super good.
But that's my team. How's your team look, Bex?
Well, I think I drafted at a 105 and I took DeAndre Hopkins there. And so I like my receivers. I went a little bit of a receiver stack, but in the second round I did take McCaffrey, so at least I had a fairly solid running back core. So I went second and third. I went McCaffrey, and then I got Devontae Freeman coming back. Yeah. So I thought I was set there, and then I went into receivers. So the way that it looked, my quarterbacks are they're poopy though. They're really not good. Eli Manning, Case Keenum, and Joe Flacco to round it out. Okay. A little bit sticky there, but right now I'm looking at getting some running backs now. We're only in round 16, so I'm taking shots now. But Devontae Freeman and Christian McCaffrey, like I said, and then I also have Marlon Mack in there, so I'm pretty happy with those 3. And then my receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, Allen Robinson, Golden Tate. I have Funchess, took a shot on Allen Hurns. And then tight ends are fairly light too, but I like Jared Cook this year, so he's going to be my tight end 1 probably. And then I'm taking shots. I got Cameron Brate. I took Jake Butt, my last pick in round 15.
You went early in mine, which was a bummer.
Yeah, so there's still a couple of those guys. So now I'm just going to start taking some shots at really at tight end and at running back because my receiving core is fine.
Yeah. So, well, you know what I wanted to take, and on my last pick, 22nd round. And, it's kind of a pain in the butt because all the way back for the last 4 days of the draft, we were traveling through U.S. And so no cell service, no data or whatever. So if I got to Wi-Fi at a hotel or a restaurant or something, I'd quickly go on Wi-Fi and try to pick a bunch of guys. And then for my very last one, I wanted to take Virgil Green from the Chargers. And somehow I must have screwed it up, and that's when I got Chad Williams, the receiver from Arizona, who I kind of like this year. I mean, I thought he could be in a good spot last year. He was really keen and eager and working out with Larry, and I think he's the guy that nobody talks about, but he could easily end up being their wide receiver too and beat out. Christian Kirk is all the buzz right now, but Williams has been there, and he had a lot of hype going into last year. So anyways, I thought, what the heck, why not get Virgil Green? I mean, he's the tight end in the Chargers has always done quite well. And what if Mike Williams doesn't develop or something? He's a big guy, and maybe he just has a career year. Why not? With your 22nd pick, why not take him? So I might still, once the waivers open up, try to pick him up because, like you said, tight end premium. You want to have some shots there, some bullets.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why I think I'm just going to try to load up on it now because if someone all of a sudden hits, right? And then away you go. And I mean, I'm usually streaming anyway. So
Yeah,
that's good. Anyways, that's Scott Fishbowl. It's awesome. So I'd like to thank Scott for letting us 3 auction folk in on that league. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of like all the analysts, like you name it, they're all in it, and some fans too. And shout out to our fan Derek Myers for winning the whole thing a couple years ago. Yeah. So see that he's been kind of grandfathered in as a former champion.
Yeah, he's in my division this year.
Yeah, I saw that. So
I have to at least beat him.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope.
All right, Blistr, let's get ourselves into some letters. So let's go into the next segment here. This one's called We Just Got a Letter. So when we just got a letter, actually, it's more we get tweets. So we've got 3 of them on the docket for tonight, Blistr. So we'll just kind of hammer them out here. The first one is at Shawnee_15. He's in a keeper league. Interesting, 13 teams. And it is PPR. He has Hopkins for $32. So his question is, should he target a top tier running back, or should he try to land a wide receiver 1? Another wide receiver 1, I guess, if he's got Hopkins for 32.
Yeah, so 13 team PPR. It must be like just a points league then, right?
Well, you can play no buy. Yeah.
Oh, you get a buy. Anyways, I think Hopkins for $32 obviously is a steal.
For sure.
Probably paying $30 less than what he would normally cost. But I wouldn't mind seeing him target one of the top 2 running backs. Anytime you have a keeper league, like I was answering a couple questions through some
all
Gmail.
The questions right now. Hey, keeper. Yeah.
And what you got to remember is everyone's keeping whatever they can, 1 or 2 guys or whatever the rules require at a discount, right? So then all of a sudden they got more money to throw at another position. And I kind of like the thought of him. Like I remember before making notes to myself after a draft or after the season was over. And maybe one of the notes I made to myself was, if you can get a top player at running back and the top receiver, start there and then build your team around those. So I like that. I mean, like last year when I drafted in our auction, our big auction, and that's usually what I refer to. We have so many different leagues, but I refer to our big auction one. That's kind of what we based all this stuff on. Is I remember grabbing Hopkins at the time, and he wasn't the most expensive player in the draft or the receiver, because the year before he had a bad year, but every other year he had played quite well and he had the talent. So I knew that in my gut, I knew he's going to bounce back last year. So I got him for a discount, but he was the top player. Like he was the top receiver in the league. So, you know, you don't always have to pay the most to have the best player. And quite often, you know, some of those highest paid players flop. But I would say in his spot, he's got Hopkins. He's got a great jump already. He might have the wide receiver 1 or 2, which is pretty damn good. Go after one of the top running backs, you know, and you have a little extra money to play with now because you just saved some money on your wide receiver 1 that you might have normally paid $62 for or $60 for. Now you might have, instead of paying, you might be able to afford to go if a top running back goes for 55 or 60, you might be able to go to 75 or if you want, and you can still have the RB1 and the wide receiver 1 potentially. That's a great start to your draft.
It is a great start. Yeah, and it's so hard to answer these keeper questions because you don't know anything else, right? Like how many guys are you allowed to keep, what's on his roster, all of those types of things. So if you do, like Blistr said, if you have bigger questions that either don't fit into the 200 plus characters in Twitter, or like somebody else said last week, they don't want their league mates to see the question, fire us an email, footballauctioneer@gmail.com. That's footballauctioneer@gmail.com. And then I'll make sure it gets out to Slim and Blistr, and they'll answer away. And they're usually right on it and getting you answers right away, even if they don't have Wi-Fi while they're driving.
Yeah, I answered a few, but there's that one that you sent me, and I still got it. It's about a 2-page question.
Yeah, he apologized. It's a subscriber, and it's good.
I couldn't get through that one with the family on a road trip, but now that I'm home,
let's call him Johnny today. Johnny sent that long one. He's gonna laugh, and the reason why he's gonna laugh is because apparently I butcher his name every time.
Oh yeah.
He asked the question or he sends something and I call him the wrong name. I don't even like, I think now I'm really going to screw it up. I think without me looking, I'm going to cross my fingers and say, I think his name is Ted. But Ted. I should just remember that. Ted, like the teddy bear, right?
That's not hard.
Yeah, I know, but for like some reason last week I called him something else, and so then he called me out on it on a DM on Twitter. So, anyways,
it is too.
So Johnny sent a real long one. I know it's a little bit to read through. So
I gotta have to go through that one. I just opened it up again. I'll get to that later on.
Okay, there you go. Okay, let's go on to Twitter question number 2. This is at Caleb Lampert. He's asking my projected budget for running backs in a 14 roster, full PPR league. This is his budget. So he wants to know what your thoughts are. So let's just go. We'll go by position rather than just listing them and go. So right now he's looking into budget $48 for his RB1. So this is a 14 man roster.
Yeah. 14 team, 14.
So to
man.
me, so it's a short bench to me.
It is.
So I'm thinking, Blistr, first of all, that there's going to be a lot of money to be able to spend out there because it's a shorter bench, right?
Things,
so maybe everybody's got an extra $5 or $10 to throw in. Throw into the bigger
that's
names.
The thing with a 14 teamer, there's more money involved in the auction, so guys tend to go for a little bit more, and we've got that updated on our site when we have our ranks for 10 and 12 in a 14 team league. So first of all, players are going to cost a little bit more. Second of all, they don't have to save as much. Let's guess he's starting 9 players. We'll just guess, or maybe 10. So that means the bench has got 4 or 5 players on it. Very thin. So there's going to be lots of good players on the waiver wire. But he doesn't have to budget too much money for his bench. If it's 5 man, he might only budget $10 for that, or 8. So first of all, I think he's going a little light on his RB1. I mean, with $48, 14 team league, you might get lucky and get Melvin Gordon or Dalvin Cook. I think
right now that's kind of who we have on the site of the 14 team. Are you looking at the numbers right now?
Yeah, I am. Gordon, we have 48, Cook 46, and Fournette 49. I would be very happy to get those guys, but I think they could cost a little bit more. But even so, if you got a budget, go to $55, then those 3 guys are in play, and that's a good starting point for your team. When you drop down to the $25 range, you're looking at Jerick McKinnon or Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake. You might get Derrick Henry. There's some people that love him, some people that hate him. Darius Geist, $22. So you got some decent players there. Obviously, they're players.
So that's his second. He's looking at budget. Sorry, because we didn't say that. RB1 was 48, RB2 at 25. So that's why you're going to that range.
That's right. So that would be guys that are good and potentially have a good year in front of them, or some higher ceilings potentially, but then they also have some question marks. The third one was how much? $10?
$10.
So we're looking at guys like maybe Sony Michel, although Marlon Mack perhaps. If you can get those guys, again, you could be getting a good starter, but with Marlon Mack, there's some question marks. You never know what New England's going to do. Chris Thompson's at 8, Rex Burkhead at 9, again, another New England back. Duke Johnson's at 7. There's not a lot of guys kind of around $10. You might even want to spend a little more and be willing to go a little bit less on your RB3 and target guys like maybe Devontae Booker or Ty Montgomery or guys like that should get some touches right out of the gate. And then CJ Anderson's a guy a little bit cheaper. But I'd feel better about my team if I knew I had, if you can't get Cook, Gordon, or Fournette, then it drops down to Devontae Freeman, LaShawn McCoy, who knows what's going to happen there, Mark Ingram, they're in the mid-30s to high 20s. Who else? Jordan Howard. I'd be fine starting my season with him. He's not going to catch you a lot of passes, but you could drop all the way down to that range. Seems like there's a kind of a gap, right? There doesn't seem to be too many players in that $30 range this year. It seems like there's eight guys that are going to go for probably 50, 55 plus, and then there's probably I redid all my tiers the other day, and I have about 8 guys in that high end range, another 4 probably in the 40s maybe, and then it seems to drop right off down to the 20s and below. So anyways, I kind of digressed. I would probably spend more on his RB1. I'd be willing to budget more for the RB1, and then I'd probably, with the RB2, you might get a decent player for $5 less even in there. And RB3, I could probably drop down some more yet. So that's where you could save his money. If that's all he wants to do, I would go more in the RB1 and then be willing to save it down at the RB3, RB4 range.
Right. Yeah, there you go. And then you could take shots down there too, right? For a buck or two rather than.
Because there's guys that are there and there's guys that aren't even on anybody's radar, whether it's fantasyauction.com or like our site, or if it's CBS or Yahoo or NFL. There's guys that out there right now at running back that nobody's even talking about that will start games this year. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing, is playing that waiver wire. Spend more on your studs now and then be ready to jump that waiver wire when it comes.
Yeah, and I mean, that must mean he's spending a lot of money on quarterback and or wide receiver because,
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
you know what I mean? You would think that there's a lot of, with 14 teams and a 14-man roster, there's going to be a lot of money for those big name guys. So
he's only got $88 budgeted there for those 4.
Yeah.
In retro, like we have a 12 team. I was playing with some ideas the other day. I was debating on budgeting 100 or 110 for my first 2 running backs.
Yeah.
So that even if I only went 100, I'm still spending $12 more on only 2 guys potentially, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I said,
in a 12 team too, right? So you're going to be able to, the dollar's going to go further.
I find that the top 8 to 12 running backs, like I said, that are pricier, then there's a pretty good gap. And when you're paying around 30, 35, there's kind of some question marks involved. They could be good, they could be garbage. And then after that, you're dropping almost down to the guys that are coming off the bench, or if you're looking at CJ Anderson or Ty Montgomery or Jamal Williams, or like guys that could be in the timeshare. You're looking at timeshare guys or guys coming off the bench. Or so are you better off to just say, okay, screw it, I'm going to spend 100 on my top 2, and I'm going to go down to the $1 and $2 range and pick up some of these rookies like a Jordan Wilkins or a Naeem Hines or different guys like that could eventually be in the starting role, and hope that my starters that I spend the big bucks on stay healthy until these guys have made their way up the depth chart and are starting and can produce for me. So it's a little bit of a gamble you can play. But again, if your starter goes down, then there's going to be somebody on the waiver wire that you can probably grab. Like one's probably drafting anybody behind Saquon Barkley on the Giants.
Not Wayne Gallman?
No, other than the person who wrote that magazine article. He might get drafted, but I'm guessing, like, I've been in a few mocks and then Wayne hasn't went yet.
He hasn't gone yet, eh?
No, even the bots, the computer bots that are doing the drafting are not.
RB3 at the Giants behind the generational talent that is Saquon Barkley.
So
that's interesting.
I'd take my chances there.
All right, let's move on to question number 3, Blistr. Question number 3 is from @Koopaloop5. We've heard from him quite a bit. This is an interesting question and it's not auction specific. How do you handle a league member of 15 years that won't follow through with a league punishment since he got last place? My first question is, what's the punishment?
I think it's a Marcus Wheaton tattoo on his ass.
And then I knew that's where it was going. I knew it.
But you didn't. I almost thought
it was showing up this year with a Sharpie on my arse, and Wheaton too, of all names. Like, I mean,
he did nothing. It was like a big argument over a guy who was like not even talking
flag
about
football. I don't even know if he's playing in the flag football league. Well, unbelievable.
A league member of 15 years that won't follow through. So this guy must have been part of the plans and part of the decision-making process to have a league punishment for the last place guy. I guess it depends what it is. I mean, there could be some things that are maybe because of his job, maybe that would put him in jeopardize his work, maybe his family. I don't know. It depends what the punishment is. If it wasn't something that would land him in jail or potentially
bodily fluids or
something that his wife would take him to the cleaners on, then I think that he should follow through, or maybe he should be removed from the league. At the worst case scenario, I just don't know what the punishment would be. Maybe Koopaloop will give you a little DM and tell you what the punishment would be in the guy's situation. But you gotta, I mean, if the league agrees on everything, be just like somebody doesn't pay you the league fees.
It's one of the requirements of the league.
You gotta do that. That's part of the deal. And if you don't agree with it, then you gotta, that person had that opportunity well before they came in last place to say, I'm going to step out of this league, or you have to find somebody to take my spot. I just can't do that, and it's not right to the integrity of our league or whatever. I've been there 15 years, so obviously means something. So,
and he's obviously seen punishments for like the last 14.
It's easy to
so it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but so hey, Koopaloop, send us some more information on that. I'm just curious now what the punishment is, because I think that changes a lot of how you answer the question, right? Because maybe it's a terrible.
Why don't you get him the Sacco? That's all you need. Get him a Sacco. Nobody wants to carry the Sacco around and display that with pride on their mantle above the fireplace, but you got to do it.
So what? Just I don't know why. I also got a and envision the Sacco. Like, what if they made you put those big blue balls on the hitch of your truck when you're driving around?
Yeah.
Like, that's your punishment.
Yeah.
You have to be that guy.
Some people out there listening must have seen those. Some people.
Well, and if you have them, then that's fine, I guess. But you're driving around with those big nuts swinging underneath your truck. That would be that's
that would
be for sure. I wouldn't like that. You're rolling into work, eh? Got your shirt and tie on, big nut sack,
big
the curb.
Yeah.
Anyways, hey, and Slim just a couple of minutes ago tweeted out there, wants us to have fun and hopes there's a lot of kicker talk. So
yeah, you guys talked about kickers last week.
We did a little bit, yeah. And I did. I mean, I didn't put it on the actual. Sometimes I put it on the site. The graphic I made for the pod was the Kenosha Kickers from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So I thought that was pretty. The Kenosha Kickers, the little John Candy, was good. Anyways, so those are the 3 Twitter questions, Blistr.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to add to any of that? I think we're good there, right?
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
All right.
All these questions, like you say, sometimes they're hard to give a real good answer. If it's a keeper question, you don't know what else they're keeping, what people are keeping. Sometimes like the stats, like I was answering a question the other day for somebody and they said, well, what is the scoring? Like, that's pretty important. Like just looking at our auction last year when we changed to Superflex and we'd give a quarter point per carry, like all of a sudden, boom, the running backs are becoming like, when you did a projection of how everybody was going to score, the running backs became so valuable. And, that changed everything when I went into my auction, because I used to want to just load up on receivers because it seemed to be the way to go. But then with that scoring tweak, I realized, holy man, I got to have some running backs here.
Yeah.
Of course,
absolutely.
David Johnson didn't do me too many favors, but, it all worked out in the end.
So thanks for replying to him. Okay, so we finished with Twitter questions. Let's move on because it's just Blistr and I here. We're going to go through one of the division breakdowns he did for the membership area on the website. Slim did all of his as premium podcasts. We talked about maybe getting Blistr teaching you how to do some of that, because
it sounded interesting.
A great way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like to write.
You didn't listen to them, eh? I'll have to send them to you.
I don't even know how to listen to them.
Yeah, I'll show you. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward from our end, anyways. But for $14.95, you can get access to the premium pods, the premium articles, the hundreds of auction values and player rankings, and the full tool that we have with that value indicator. Slim and I last week talked a lot about how that can be valuable when you're trying to find value in your draft. So for $14.95, when you head to the website, become a member. We've had tons of people doing it over the last few days. It's been busy. My email notifications have been going like crazy. And you'll get access to all those things. We'll do more premium pods. We'll have more articles coming out. Camps are just, getting underway here. So this is when stuff really starts to get going. But with Blistr here, he's done a division breakdowns for the AFC. That's for the membership people already. So let's do a breakdown for you on the podcast. So let's do, I think I used to have an intro for this one. I don't know what it is. Let's just go division breakdown. Sounds good for me anyways. And I think it's Beverly Hills Cop. I think I got in there or something. Anyways, all right, Blistr. So we're going to take a quick look at the AFC North division. And there's some interesting rookies that are going on in here. So let's take a look first at the Baltimore Ravens. Let's take a look at, first of all, we'll just go quick. Off-season moves. They brought in Michael Crabtree, which is interesting. John Brown, which could be interesting. Willie Snead. They also drafted Hayden Hurst. They got Lamar Jackson, which is a lot of rage there. They do have the tight end Mark Andrews that they drafted in the first round as well. So in the third round. So they're busy. They do have a couple of receivers they brought in late. What do you like about Baltimore? Studs, duds, breakouts, all those types of things?
Well, I think Baltimore, they finished 9-7 last year. I think they're a better team this year with some of the additions they brought in. And I think their defense is always going to be pretty strong. So I think they could do as well or a little bit better this year. I think one of the things with Lamar Jackson, the quarterback that they drafted in the end of the first round, he is getting a lot of hype. But I think what's going to happen, I think Joe Flacco is going to hold him off for the most part. I think what you saw last year in Kansas City with Alex Smith, they brought in Patrick Mahomes, and all of a sudden Alex Smith went from this little downfield dink and dunk passer to the most accurate downfield passer in the league last year, and he was he top 5 overall fantasy quarterback last year, I believe, as well.
I think so, yeah.
I think all of a sudden Joe Flacco, you could be looking over his shoulder and thinking, well, I'm not losing my job to this kid here yet. And, it might be his last year in Baltimore because of Lamar Jackson. But I think it'll be interesting. I think Joe could probably, I had him on a couple Superflex teams last year. He was disappointing, terrible. I'm so happy I got him in the Scott Fishbowl. Yeah, but I think he'll be better this year. And I think so. The interesting thing is that tight end, they haven't had a tight end that was able to stay healthy for a long time. But last year Watson was there, Ben Watson. He's not young at all. And I think he was still top 12 tight end overall. So with the rookie tight ends that they got, Hayden Hurst and then Mark Andrews, it's kind of funny because a lot of them Hayden Hurst is old. He's an old rookie.
An old soul.
Mark Andrews is a tight end that a lot of experts think will be better on passing downs and catch more passes than him this year, which is odd because they drafted him 2 rounds later. Yeah. But they do like to throw to the tight end there. But again, on the flip side, tight ends typically don't produce a whole lot in their rookie season. So it'll be interesting to see how those rookies work out. Michael Crabtree, I've been right on him for the last few years. When he was good with Oakland, I was right. I felt like he would do well, and I had him on my teams. And last year, I just didn't think he was going to do as well, and I didn't draft him, and he didn't have a great year. But right now I'm not sure what to think about him. I think he could have a big year. He should get the most targets. I'm not a big John Brown fan. I just think he's too small. Yeah. But he could stretch a field, and Joe Flacco has a big arm. So if you want to grab him for $1 or a gamble, but it's just hard with those type of players because they don't do it week in and week out typically.
Right. That's all sure, but.
Yeah. So another guy, I do talk about Alex Collins. I mean, he had a pretty good year with them last year when he started getting some playing time. He'd bounced around from Seattle to wherever he went, and then he ended up in Baltimore. And I think he's a guy that you could probably pay around $18 to $20 for in your auction and have a starter. Is it going to be for the whole year? I'm not convinced it will be. I still think Kenneth Dixon has something to prove, and he was hurt most of the last year. So with Kenneth Dixon comes back, I think that he could be a 3-down back. I think Alex Collins primarily is their first and second, and then they bring in Buck Allen for 3rd down. But Kenneth Dixon could be all that in one. So I think that they don't, after those 3 guys, there's not a ton of depth. So I don't think they want to kick anybody to the curb here. But I do think that if Kenneth Dixon, he's a guy that you should be taking a stab on in your auction for $2 at the end. Save an extra $1 to buy him because he came into the league with a lot of hype, and he hasn't really done a lot yet. He's been banged up, but you know what? He's still got talent, and I think that if he gets a chance to play, he might start to break out of his shell here. So he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay in the field, but somebody to keep an eye on late in your draft for $1 or $2.
Well, now Alex Collins, according to our value indicator, is tied with Jerick McKinnon as far as the best value right now on auctions at a $14 AAV and slotted as our consensus 16. That's odd that it's listing it as 17, but okay. He's our consensus 17, even though we all have him ranked 16. It's just the way that the math works out. But he should be going for at that slot, it's about a $22 slot, but he's only going for $14 right now. So now tied with Jerick McKinnon for the biggest steal in auction leagues.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good. I think when you think about an overall, I think the AFC North, this team here, this Baltimore Ravens team anyways, there's a lot of value there. Like I say, Flacco for $1, he'll never cost more than that. If you take a gamble on one of these tight ends and maybe their role will be more defined by the time the season starts, they're not going to cost you more than $1 at this point. Michael Crabtree is probably going for less than $10. I haven't looked at the values on there. And Alex Collins for in the $20 range. So that's pretty cheap, and you're getting starters. So those are definitely guys to have on your radar.
Crabtree right now at $13 as our consensus wide receiver 27.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
Okay.
So if we move on from the Ravens, Blistr, and go to Cincy, the Cincinnati Bengals didn't do a whole lot as far as free agent signings that have fantasy relevance as far, specialty players. They did lose AJ McCarron and Jeremy Hill, which is a little bit interesting with the Jeremy Hill departure. And rookie's really the only one that in the 4th round, Mark Walton. Outside of that, it's kind of more dynasty talk. So obviously we've got some Joe Mixon, some John Ross talk, and on Tyler Eifert, Giver.
Yeah, well, I think this team's success is going to depend if Joe Mixon can take the next step. And right now, there's some people that love Joe Mixon at $25 in that range and thinking he's going to explode and it's a steal. And there's other things that he doesn't have it in him. So he has to. I mean, this is the year they did draft Mark Walton in the 4th round, but I don't think that between Mark Gio Bernard, who nobody's talking about, and Joe Mixon, that's what they got basically at running back. So I think they do see more in Joe, and I think they have some faith in him. I do think AJ Green is slowing down. I mean, he's a hell of a receiver. He's been a great receiver for many years now, but I think he's on the decline. I had both him and Julio last year on a team or two, and I was disappointed. I thought they would basically Antonio Brown is a sure thing, and he every week in and week out he plays. But these guys were really hit and miss last year, I thought. And I mean, overall in the end they finished. AJ finished decent, but I'm kind of one of the guys. If I'm going to pay $50+ for a receiver, I'm going to try to probably not be spending it on him. But They need Mixon to be the man. I think John Ross is a guy you're going to be able to get at the end of your auction for a couple bucks. And again, he was a 1st round pick 1.0. He was in 1.09, and he had actually negative fantasy points last year. I think he made a catch and fumbled, so he ended the year with negative fantasy points, like less than a point, but it was still negative, which is pretty hard to do. So I really think that he needs to come back and be strong for this offense to click, because between Joe and AJ Green, that's not a lot of talent. So they need more than him. I think Brandon LaFell is not that great. He's not getting any younger either. So as far as Tyler Eifert goes, well, he's still hurting and banged up, and there's no commitment to when he can be on the field full time. So I mean, this Tyler Eifert and Jordan Reed are two guys that, people used to, they've always been hurt, and people would still spend more money on them in the auction because they had such talent. But a lot of people would never, ever, waste money. Like my mindset was always, well, I'm not paying $9 or $10 or $12 on either of those guys for a tight end because they're always hurt, and I can pick up, somebody else for half that price that'll produce more. But they're actually to the point now where I would consider taking them both. Like, what if you took Jordan Reed? It probably might go for $3 or maybe $4, and Eifert you probably get for $1 or $2, and all of a sudden you have immense talent. And now, if they do go down and get hurt, who cares? So you didn't spend 12 or 15 bucks on them. You spent $2 perhaps. So, it's not a bad combo, but like about a week or two ago, I thought that's what I'm going to do this year. Nobody's going to want them. I'm going to pick those two bums, and if I get 4 weeks out of one and 6 more weeks out of another, maybe they help me enough to secure my playoff position, and then I play the waiver wire for only the final 4 or 5 weeks of the season or whatever it is, right? So, but then there hasn't been one positive report coming out of any camp that they're looking good, or they're not that they can even get on the field. So I would watch, but the only positive note is there will be so cheap now in your auction that if you can squeeze a few games out of them, go for it, because they're going to need Tyler Eifert to be good too, because Mixon, AJ Green, and it's hoping that John Ross takes the next step. That's still not a lot of weapons.
No. Well, and it's Andy Dalton throwing the football.
That's right. So, and Andy.
Yeah. So yeah, and it just keeps going. That guy just keeps going down and down and down too, right? Yeah.
So that's my take on
that.
I don't know. I think that. I don't know. There's not a lot of depth here, I don't think, and there's not an overabundance of talent. Yeah.
Well, and you just hope Mixon. I mean, in the rookie drafts going in to dynasty rookie drafts last year, Mixon was a hot commodity about how he's being undervalued because he is this exceptional talent because of the off-field stuff, and yada yada.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we forget he was a rookie too, right? Like, I mean, we're so spoiled by the Zekes and the Kareem Hunts, and we just expect now, oh, geez, you produced in college, you better get your butt in on the field there and give us a 1,000-yard season, you bum, and they're rookies in the NFL.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many of them. Like, when you go into that rookie draft, oh man, everyone they're going to be this, they're going to be that, and so often they're not. It's way more often they're not. Like Joe Mixon is a good example. Maybe he will be better this year. Kenneth Dixon too last year. Remember, he was, or 2 years ago, whatever it was. He was going to be the man. That's what they needed, and he hasn't done anything yet. And the list goes on and on and on. But yeah, it's tough to. There's not too many Zekes that are coming out and blowing the doors off.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to the Steelers. There's a little bit more to talk about here in Pittsburgh. So key signings, not necessarily much there. Did lose Eli Rogers and Martavis Bryant, which is probably a good thing and a good thing. They pick up James Washington at the 28th pick of the second round and Mason Rudolph down the road as Big Ben's replacement maybe. But we know we're going to talk about Lev Bell. We know we're going to talk about Antonio Brown. Maybe there's some tight end chatter we can talk about here. There's also Juju. He's out there, and maybe even James Washington. Maybe something interesting this year, Blistr. What do you think about the guys on the Steelers?
Yeah, the Steelers' offense is pretty awesome when you have Lev Bell and Antonio Brown leading the way. Like, they're not just your number one receiver, number one running back. They have potential to be the number one receiver and running back in the entire league. So that obviously draws a lot of attention and produces or opens up a lot more opportunity for everybody around them. So, you know what they talk about, good players make everyone else around them better. Well, that's what happens when you play opposite Antonio Brown or with Lev Bell. So I think, Juju Smith-Schuster, he opened up a lot of eyes last year, and I think he's going to be a guy. Look it up while we're talking, Bex, but what's he go for now? Mid-20s probably.
Right now we haven't had 20. Right now, well, here's the problem with him is that we aren't as high on him as everybody else is. Yeah. So we've got him as our consensus wide receiver 28. Yeah. You're at 28. I'm at 29. Slim has him at 22. So he's at low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. Yeah. But he's being drafted like he's the 18th guy off the board. So right now he's going for $25, which is about $12 more expensive. Yeah, it would as far as our rankings go. So that's where this value indicator is a nice little tool to see.
So I thought he might be a little bit expensive for me, but I think that with the receiving core, James Washington's he's a good rookie. He's gonna get opportunities as well, and we've seen this offense before support 3 receivers. Now the third one obviously isn't going to be a stud, 10 or 12 weeks out of the season, but he's going to have a half a dozen really impressive games, I'm sure. At tight end, I think this is the year that Vance McDonald. He's had a year now there to learn the offense. He was beat up a bit last year, but I think he's a better receiving tight end than Jesse James. So Vance, there is some rumblings and people are starting to talk about him already in the world out there. So I think that he might not be $1, but I don't think he's going to cost you more than $2 or $3. He shouldn't. I don't know if I'd be willing to go more than 3 on him, but a good tight end, if you miss, when you look at the tight end landscape, man, it's scary because there's a few studs and then there's a few more after that are good but old, and then after that it's just a crapshoot after that. So he's a guy that if you're going into the crapshoot, you haven't got a tight end, spend $1 on him. And you know what, Bex, and I think I've said this way too many times, but ever since when you won the auction there a few years back, I've never, and I won the dynasty and I won the auction too, I've never spent on a tight end. I've never spent a pile of money, because even with the tight end premium and stuff like that, or we don't do that, or we did do it last year actually. Even with that, like, they still don't score nearly as much as your good receivers and your good running backs. I mean, there's been years where a few years ago, Rob Gronkowski would have been like wide receiver 2. Like, that's when his numbers were like crazy, right? But I don't see any of them doing that this year. Like, if you look at tight end, this is kind of getting off track a bit, but Kelsey has a rookie quarterback. We don't know what he's going to do. Ertz could be the number 1 tight end this year. Gronk can't stay healthy. So it just... Yeah, I've seen a lot more winning teams with very little at tight end than I've seen where you said, oh, yeah, they won because of the tight end.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
But so that's why Vance McDonald's a good option later in your draft. And if you want to take a flyer on James Washington, he should only cost you $1. Lev Bell probably going to cost you $65 or more.
Right now, costing you 63 right now.
And Antonio's going to be up there too, around that same mark. Probably.
62. Yeah. So you might as well just take the Steelers and
you can't go wrong though. I mean,
put $130 into those 2 guys and you're good. Yeah.
I've won leagues because of Antonio Brown. Like he's worth every penny you pay, especially if it's PPR.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Blistr, that's the Steelers. Let's go on to the last one. Let's go to the a lot of interesting stuff going on here in Cleveland. So they brought in Tyrod, they brought in Carlos Hyde, they brought in Jarvis Landry with not Jarvis. I'll correct that right now. Jarvis Landry. Doing editing on the fly here. Jarvis Landry, Jeff Janis, who's been buried on my dynasty team forever. They did lose to Sean Kaiser, who cares? And the Crow is now a Jet, so that's okay. But brought in Baker Mayfield, which is, massive at 101. Nick Chubb, who I just love as a running back at the 203. So, and then Antonio Callaway, who might have some interesting value way down the road because there's a lot of mouths to feed here. But we've got Josh Gordon, we've got Carlos Hyde. We don't know what's happening in the backfield with him, between him and Chubb. We got Njoku, but are there too many mouths? Jarvis Landry, can he get the volume that he needs to be productive? Blistr, the Browns, go.
Yeah, again, there could be some great value here. I mean, Jarvis Landry, because of what he's done in the past, and if he was still in Miami, I think he'd be a receiver going for 40 or 45 bucks this year because he finished top 5 last year. But now he's in Cleveland and he's got a whole new team around him, and there's a lot of good talent here. Josh Gordon, if he can stay on the field, you know what worries me about Josh Gordon is those pictures with him all ripped up. Like his next suspension might be for performance enhancing.
David Boston comp the other day, so that was pretty good when Boston got busted for all that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what worries me, and nothing would surprise me either, of course. But I mean, Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, David Njoku, all these guys. Tyrod Taylor is probably going to start the year. Maybe he goes most of the year. It's hard to say. That the jury's out. A lot of people think he'll go about 6 games and then give way to Baker Mayfield. But Tyrod Taylor took a worse team than this to the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
he took Buffalo into the playoffs, and they had nothing there. So, he's got a lot of weapons around him, and so he could really, he liked throwing to the tight end. So Njoku could be really good, but there's so many people to throw to. Even they drafted Callaway, who had some troubles off the field. Him and that could be the other thing. Him and Gordon could get out and have too much fun. I'm surprised they haven't already. But he's got talent as well. And Nick Chubb and they still got Duke Johnson. They just signed Duke Johnson to a big 3-year extension. So it's not like he's going away. So there's just so many. I mean, they should be better than 0-16 this year. There's no reason why they shouldn't. And they got 2 great quarterbacks there. So I think that as far as fantasy goes, it's tough to spend a lot of money on any one of them. I don't think you'll ever have to. In the end, probably Josh Gordon's going to end up being the most expensive, and he might even climb to about 30 bucks. But that's not terrible. And at least you're not, I don't mind him. I'm a little more hesitant.
He's at 30 right now, Blistr.
Yeah. So he could get a little bit more of that. It's hard to say, but they have a lot of receivers there. I think I put down that Jarvis Landry was potentially a bust, and the biggest thing was he was number 4 overall last year in PPR scoring. He had a poor yards per catch, 8.8, and now he's in a new offense and with a whole lot of weapons. So I just think that he doesn't even see the number of targets, and I think people could go into the draft with the stats from last year. Oh, geez, Jarvis Landry, number 4 overall. Well, even if he's a little worse, he's still top 12 or something, but I don't think he even I don't think he's I don't think he's top 18. That's what I'm going to say. Maybe 19, 18, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you'd love to take him depending on your Josh Gordon as you're in that roster construction, right? Because the upside is just right. Like if he goes, he could just be nutty. Yeah. So if you find a sweet spot, someone's out taking the piss halfway through you know what I mean? And you sneak him in there and you got I don't know, like Larry Fitz, Doug Baldwin, you decided not to spend big money, and then you take a shot at wide receiver 3 with Josh Gordon, and all of a sudden he finishes as top 5 wide receiver, right? So
well, he could be phenomenal. And then right now I'm hoping that he is. I really hope he is. And there's a guy much like well, not a lot, but just like Nuke last year, Hopkins, he was a guy that I can't remember. I wish I knew what he paid, but I think I only paid around $30, give or take $3 or $4 either side, right? And he ended up being number 1 guy. And this is another guy you could get cheap, and if it pans out, you're going to be feeling pretty damn good about yourself.
Well, yeah, for sure. Actually, Blistr, I'll pull up just if you want, because I can pull up last year's average auction values. Give me a sec here for it to load. Just because that's interesting. DeAndre Hopkins, as of our ranking September 7th, was consensus 15th wide receiver going for $37, which was overvalued as far as what we saw.
Okay.
Because that position should have been going for $29. So he was being drafted as a wide receiver 12.
Yeah.
We had him as a wide receiver 15.
Yeah.
And he, finished a little bit better.
I can't remember. I probably could pull it up too, but it might take too long. But I was going to say our old auction. Oh, there it is right there. The old league. And just see what I paid for them on draft day. But you keep going.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we got coming up here.
Yeah, no, and I think that about wraps up the AFC North breakdown, Blistr. So like I said, he's got the all of the AFC, and it's in these slides on the website. You can download them and print them if you prefer to do it that way. You can read them on the website there. So all on one page, but they're like slides you can kind of roll through. It doesn't have all the ads and all that stuff, when they're trying to get that clickbait going. So the members can get access to all that. Slim did all of his NFC breakdowns as premium podcasts. So you can download those as well if you're a member on the website. And what else can I tell you? That's all there for you. So we've gone through a couple or three now. Hey, Blistr breakdowns on the pods.
We've done 3 now. Yeah, we just got one left.
One more to go. So next time Slim's away, we'll have a script already done. It'll be perfect.
Perfect,
Blistr.
We can get her done.
All right. So, Blistr, that puts us. We're getting close to the hour mark, which is good. We answered some listener questions. We broke down the AFC North. Anything right now you're doing as far as auction prep besides listening to all those pods?
Well, I'm going to probably do another mock auction. I've been trying to do one a week, but I've only done 3 now, I think, or 4. And I like to keep my own spreadsheet of who I bought and what they cost me, and then the other big names in the draft that cost more than a few bucks, just to keep tabs and see how they're changing, just like you're doing. But maybe I don't have to do all that work now that you're compiling that all on that site. That's something that I just updated my ranks the other day, and I kind of adjusted my tiers according to some of the prices that I see players going for, because I think that's really important. Like you guys reiterated it over and over about having your tiers, going to the auction with just a few sheets of paper. That's all you really need, because that's all your homework's done then. And that's true. And the thing is, you can really then hammer out a strategy. Okay, I want to have 2, one good running back, 1 good receiver. Then who's in this, this is how much I can afford for the next player. Kind of like that one listener question we had there tonight. Like, he had an idea what he wanted to spend on each position, which is a heck of a good start. That's what you have to do. And then I do that when I go into my auction. Okay, I know I want to spend roughly this much, and I know these people are in that price range. And then if it costs me more or less, then I adjust somewhere else. Okay, it cost me $5 more than I thought I was going to spend. Okay, I got to take $5 away from somewhere else. I'm going to take $5 from one spot, or 1, 1, 1, 1, or what. So that's really important. So that's why I do my tiers, and to kind of keep them updated. I also did some tiers for my own drafting with the strength of schedule put on them too, so that I can kind of glance down if I'm having a hard time deciding between player A and player B, and I look down and say, well, this guy has a really good strength of schedule. That's kind of why I took Ryan Tannehill as my 3rd quarterback in the fishbowl. Eli was there, Dalton was there. There's a bunch of guys there, but he wasn't ranked as high, but his strength of schedule is one of the 2nd easiest in the whole league. So
well, and just to go on that point, so Blistr's tiers are in the membership area, and we have 3 different levels of membership. So you can be the full auctioneer, which is you just get everything. That's the full meal deal. You could also be a buyer, which gives you the premium podcast and then all of the sheets, or like spreadsheets, or you can just be the bidder. And for $5, you just go on our website, you click on the members area, you click that you want to be the bidder, and you can just get all the spreadsheets. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, if you just don't want to do all the spreadsheet work, it's there. So what you'll get is all of our auction values at all the positions, like we've been talking about tonight. You'll get Blistr's tiers. You'll get Slim's tiers. He's working on them, doesn't have them on the website yet, but he's working on them. And then in August, I put my actual cheat sheet that I walk into drafts with. It's all color coded and everything along that lines too. So you can just for $5, just like forget about doing all the heavy lifting, get those, download them, and then start doing all kind of, the little tweaking for creating your own tiers, because over and over and over again, we tell you create your own tiers and draft the tiers, not the players.
That's right.
So anyways, those options are all there for you. Blistr, anything else to add before we wrap this up and I do some editing before I head back to the lake and have a sauna and a beer?
Oh, you lucky man. No, that's it. Glad to be back, man. I'll be around. We got 1 week till golf trip, man.
Yeah, I know. We got make sure you're packed up on Sunday morning, which I'm sure you'll be because we got Matt Harmon on Sunday night.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I'm ready to go right now. All right. Sounds like
I might have to swing some clubs this week, Blistr.
Thursday, let's go Thursday for sure.
Yeah, Thursday I'll go for sure. I'd like to, if I can get a one time before then, that would be sweet too.
Well, we can go whenever you want, man.
Yeah, I'll be back in town Tuesday.
Trust me, I need to get out. I'm terrible right now.
Okay, well, golf trip. I'll be back on Tuesday. Maybe we can. No, Tuesday's Women's Night. We can't go with them.
I might go fishing Tuesday.
Oh, all right.
With Evans. But yeah.
Okay. Well, we have the North Arm, eh? All right. Okay, so Blistr, I'll see you on the golf course. And for everyone else, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.